Jack, I'm supposed to do this.
People find me presidential. I'd have to say, in a word, yes.
We were lucky enough, of course, to get on Air Force One. We borrowed it from West Wing, and that was great because it's an existing multi-million-dollar set.
Well, he's gone, but he's not forgotten. We've got the hero of the hour ringing in live from LA. In just a matter of minutes, I'll be talking to Xander Berkeley, who played George Mason. I'm Tamsin Sylvester. This is Pure 24, and I don't know about you, but we are all emotionally exhausted from watching what is definitely the best episode so far. As well as talking to George Mason, we've got an exclusive interview with the President of the United States. Of course, I'm talking about David Palmer. And Rodney Charters, 24's Director of Photography, tells us about filming on Air Force One. Plus, I'll be getting the views of our shell-shocked studio audience and talking to journalist Charlie Brooker and former MI5 officer David Shayler. Wow, what an episode.
Well, it was amazing, wasn't it? From very early on, when they say they can't defuse the nuclear device, you think, well, it's going to go off, it's going to happen. And then, of course, you've got Jack driving the plane, and you're thinking, what's going to happen?
The man cannot die.
Yeah.
What did you think?
I was actually really frightened. I was horrified when the bomb went off because, as I would imagine most of my generation growing up, nuclear bombs were a real boogeyman for me. I mean, people younger than me, they just don't seem to care about them. But I'd start quaking.
It's that image, isn't it?
It's that image. The mushroom crowds, mushroom crowds. That would be terrifying.
Crowds of
mushroom
mushrooms.
clouds, terrifying. Yeah, no, I grew up watching things like Threads and The Day After, and yeah, and they've been the stuff of nightmares my whole life. So thank God that we get to enjoy them in the present day.
Great. Well, there we go. Now the bomb has gone off. How will Jack remain involved in the story? Will Palmer declare war? And when will Kim find out her dad is still alive? Call us on 0870 24 009 24. That's 0870 24 009 24. You can also text, email or send us a DSAP message. All the details are on the bottom of the screen right now. So let's talk about Mason's final mission. Bless him, what a hero that man is. Are you loving him? You love him anyway, don't you, Charlie?
I do love him. I was very, very sad to see Mason go. I wasn't that surprised to see him turn up. I was just hoping they'd find a cure for his illness by the end of the show.
That would have just blotted it out of all the reality zone, though, wouldn't it? You can't cure radiation
But I
sickness.
loved Mason so much. I wanted to see Mason have his own spin-off show. I'd have just watched him complaining about anything, complaining about the temperature of his coffee.
Telling jokes.
Yeah, he was pretty much the only character who had a sense of humour, and a very dry sense of humour at that. And he will be sorely missed now that he's been blown to pieces.
What a great way to go out, though. I mean, I'm sure he would have preferred that than the gradual dropping off of bits of skin.
To some of us, he was the real hero of the piece, though. I mean, Jack Bauer's a bit too all-American, a bit too Hollywood. He was a bit more cynical and a bit more realistic, basically. So we liked him for that reason.
Do you think that Jack should have made him fly the plane from the start? Would that have happened?
Well, if you're talking about risk in these situations, you're not going to risk a nuclear bomb falling on Los Angeles, are you?
But are you going to risk such an important agent to get on that plane and fly it out?
That's the interesting point, of course. If Jack Bauer really was your expert against this terrorist organisation, you're not going to sacrifice him in the middle of the operation when he's possibly the only man who could stop it. No, so that's not particularly realistic. And I'm very worried for his health as well, because we worked out the plane's travelling at 210 miles an hour, so he's only 15 miles from the epicentre of the blast. Now, for about 5 miles at the centre of the blast, everything is vaporised. Now, beyond that, there's going to be a hell of a lot of fallout. So,
well, it makes a difference. It must do what size the bomb is.
Oh, yeah, it makes a difference what size the bomb is, but it's still a nuclear device. You're still going to get a lot of fallout coming out, so I don't think Jack's totally safe yet.
My thinking is they did a lot of very detailed research and wrote it all down and then just threw it away.
Hey, whatever, it'll look great. He's crouching behind a rock. The light will light up his face.
He ducked. I mean, that's rule one.
That's fine. Duck behind a rock. I'm going to go to the phone lines now. We've got Kimberly on the line, not Kimberly Bauer, I presume. How are you, Kimberly?
Hi, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you. How did you find tonight's episode, and were you surprised that they actually exploded this bomb?
Well, when they said it was going to go off and there was no way to make it stop, yeah, I mean, it was great that they had it go off. I think it was a great twist, because I kept wondering throughout the series, are they going to have the bomb go off or not? Well, now we know. Yes, they did.
And
I think it's great.
what about Mason being the guy who took it down? Were you surprised when he turned up in the back of the
No, I
cockpit?
wasn't surprised. I did expect that whenever he showed up at at the site, and of course he's like, let me do it, and it's funny because we knew he was like, he's going to show up in the back of that plane with a parachute, and Jack, the hero, he's going to be saved because he's the star of the show from here on out.
He is the star of the show. Thank you very much, Kimberly. We've got Richard on the line as well. Richard, what did you think of the scene when they were in the plane between Mason and Jack? Mason basically saying, well, you've got a death wish, and really sort of exposing his character. Is that the right time for psychoanalysis?
I think it was. I think it really helped Jack make his decision. At the end of the day, he loves Kimberly more than anything in the world, and I don't think he'd do anything. He wouldn't want to die when he's got Kimberly to go back to. So, yeah.
OK, thank you very much for your call. I'm going to go to Sarah in the audience. Sarah, what's your view on the whole fallout thing? Do you think he's escaped it? Do you think they'll try and sort of twist the facts a little bit to make sure he's OK?
Do you know, I have no idea. I really don't have any theory because, like you were saying before, the research doesn't... There's no, I have no idea. If it will be strange if he walks away unaffected. But it is 24, so they can pretty much do what
they can do what they like. Shad, what do you think? I mean, should he have jumped out of the plane earlier, maybe? He left it till 4 minutes before impact.
I think he could definitely have done more, basically. He could have got out earlier, but it would have been less dramatic, basically. It would have been less Jack.
It would have been less Jack, but also, he really wanted to make sure it went into the right place. Mason was still a risk.
Sure. Well, I thought at the end he was going to say something like it's been emotional, do you know what I mean? Or Mason would have some kind of catchphrase to say at the end, but disappointed.
Some kind of James Bond one-liner.
Sure.
So, I mean, what do you think is going to happen now between with Jack and with his character? What is he going to go off and find Kim? Is he going to be involved in this next twist, whatever that is?
He's not going to be sitting around twiddling his thumbs, is he? I mean, they've already intimated that there's some kind of conspiracy going on. Do people in the government know more about this bomb than perhaps they pretended to? So I suspect Jack will be dealing with that if he isn't just standing around brushing fallout dust off his shirt.
He'll be in the thick of it. I'm going to take some messages now. Kerry Ingler-Morgan says, I'd just like to say that George Mason has just become my all-time hero. If he wasn't dead, I'd marry him. I think you would as well, wouldn't you?
I'd marry him if he was dead.
Even if he was dead.
It's the 21st century.
That's getting into just things I don't want to think about with you. Thank you very much. Howard in Peterborough says, no sign of a chopper to pick our Jack up. It should be there by now. Either Tony or Michelle has failed to remember or one of them doesn't want Jack to live. How long would it take a chopper to get out there?
Well, the chopper would fly faster than the plane, but the problem is you're flying into a blast lane again. It's highly risky.
And he's risking the chopper pilot, isn't he?
Yeah, wouldn't you put that off if you were that pilot? You'd go, I'll just have a fan. I'll take out in a minute,
We'll take some more messages. Terry in Cheadle. I predicted this, don't show off, Terry, but I still didn't cope when the time came. Aside from the 0870 number, do you have a counselling line I can ring, Tamsin?
You didn't cope?
Didn't get his...
What did he do?
Cried! I cried!
Well,
There's no shame in crying, no shame in shedding a tear. Jim in Swansea says, typical Mason burying his head in the sand. We don't joke about our hero. Now, just to be 100% clear on where Mason and Jack ended up, let's go to the graphic. George piloted the plane into the Mojave Desert, which takes up more than 25,000 square miles of southeastern California. There's an extreme variation in the daily temperature, probably even more so now, with frequent winter frosts and an annual rainfall of between 5 and 15 centimetres. It's also home of the Joshua Tree. Not anymore in 24 land, obviously. Well, I am absolutely thrilled to say we have got Xander Berkeley, who played the late, great George Mason. Sir George Mason, as he shall henceforth be known, live on the phone from LA. Xander, thank you so much for joining us.
It's a great pleasure.
You are our absolute hero. We're loving you here.
Aww.
How excited were you when you saw that script and you realised what your ending was going to be?
Well, I had found out just a little in advance of seeing the script because I was trying to track the whole thing for the makeup and how the decay would be manifesting itself and how to pace it. And they let me know it was coming up a little sooner than they had thought. And so I had to rush to the conclusion of the extreme makeup and thinking how to go about doing that. So I knew, and then when I saw the script, I was delighted because it was everything I could have hoped it would be when they told me about it, yeah.
Such a fantastic twist to your role. Were you quite pleased that it wasn't just bits of you dropping off and gradual radiation poisoning?
Yeah, I have to say, it was a pretty sharp way to kill two birds with one stone, take out the bomb and me, and avoid the gradual decay, yeah.
And you get to be the biggest hero of all time. Does mean you can't be in season 3. Is that a bit disappointing?
Well, I could mutate, I suppose, and be a real hero, a superhero or something, I don't know, but it doesn't look likely, and it doesn't disappoint me either, because one doesn't want to wear a hole in the welcome mat, and better leave them wanting more and all that, hopefully.
Now, of course, in real life, you're married to Nina. Was Sarah really excited when did she sit and watch it with you, your final scene? Was she proud?
She excited when I died?
Yeah. Did she cry?
Oh, well, I was somewhere else. I was doing a job somewhere else at the time in Canada, and so I heard about it right afterwards. But yeah, they were all affected, and I think affected more so by my not being in the room. We always went to somebody else's house because we don't have TV hooked up. We're sinners. And so we would go over to friends' houses and sort of show up as the guest stars of the week in their home.
Excellent. Now, one of our guests here particularly loves you and your one-liners, the one-liners that Mason had. You were sort of the only character in that show who brought the wit and the humour into it. Do you think the show will miss that?
Well, I think it'll just be a matter of whose character can lend itself and who brings that to it, because it was something that emerged as the thing. When it started, it wasn't really written that way so much. It was something that I brought to it to make it more interesting and believable for myself. And they started writing this great stuff, and they were also wonderfully open to ideas and suggestions, and it lent for a creative collaboration that manifested itself in humor, of all things, which I thought the show kind of needed to keep believability up, because sometimes the fear is you'll sort of distract from the dramatic elements or diffuse it, but in fact it's what people do in real life situations when things are very scary. Somebody's always cracking a joke to diffuse. So I think that'll have to come up in another character one way or another.
OK, thank you very much. We have had people emailing in questions for you. So I'm going to read a few out for you, Xander, if that's OK.
Yeah.
Gareth in Leicester says, how long did it take to film the final scenes when you're in the plane with Jack, and was it really cramped?
It was really cramped, but it all happened rather quickly, I have to say.
Good. That's what we like. Was it a one-take wonder?
Yeah, well, maybe two.
Maybe
but,
two?
Yeah, it all seemed like, that's it? I put all this makeup on it? OK.
What did you do after your final scene? Did you go out and have a party, or did you just sort of slope off set?
Well, it's always sort of... sometimes it's wonderfully sort of climactic when you leave a show, but this one was sort of anticlimactic because they had to race on to the next scene right away before losing the rest of the time they had. And they did a quick toast and homage, and I beat a hasty retreat, and I had to head out of town right away, so...
OK, we've got one more question for you here. Holly in Leatherhead says, can you fly a plane in real life?
I can fly in one.
You're no John Travolta, though. You haven't got your own private jet in the background.
No, he ain't all that great either, to tell you the truth. We'll see.
OK, thank you so much for calling in, Xander. It's been a pleasure to speak to you.
Thanks so much.
Goodbye. Well, more cast members are going to be phoning in throughout our series, but let's move on to Palmer. Just as you'd expect him to shelter in a bunker, instead he's ordered Air Force One and taken to the skies. But is he flying into trouble? Is this what a president would do, David?
I think it is what a president would do if he's a genuine leader, basically. He'd go to the heart of the action. Of course, it's very different from what actually happened on 9/11 with the real president, who hid in a sort of an Air Force base in Tennessee somewhere.
Do you think Palmer is doing the right thing?
I think he is, yes. I think he is doing the right thing by being at the centre of the whole thing. People would say, like, shouldn't he be in Washington or something like this, directing it? But no, he's actually showing the American people that he is a genuine leader and that he has real sort of presidential qualities about him.
What do you think of Palmer as the president and the decision he's made to get onto Air Force One?
I think it was a very brave decision to turn up in a city where he knows there is no longer a nuclear device.
That's the thing, he did wait till he knew it was safe.
We're going to Los Angeles. No, Palmer, no, really, it's safe. Yeah, fair enough. I mean, I can see that it's worthwhile him turning up there. But, I mean, really, I just sense terrible panic brewing. I mean, what's he going to be doing? I just think he wants to get a seat in a restaurant or something. He knows everyone's going to be at home
Everyone's
going
to leave town.
Well, you'd be at home watching the telly, wouldn't you? Going, there's a bomb.
I'm going to hide somewhere. Yeah. Let's talk about the new guy at CTU, Yusuf, who's come in, and he's obviously one of the agents from one of the countries we don't talk about. And he's come in Do we trust him? I mean, is it realistic?
Well, he's one of the agents from land.
Yes.
Is it realistic? I will defer to you.
I've got to say, I mean, I do have certain problems with suspension of disbelief in this, having worked in the field of counter-terrorism. And this is one area where it really does almost ruin the show for me. You would never let the enemy into your headquarters to have access to all your intelligence and
even
encryption
at such
codes.
a point of high crisis where you would basically do anything to...
But that would be all the more reason not to do it, because they may be in there trying to stop you from stopping the attack, basically. You can't take that risk. It's a bit like with Sherry, isn't it? Where he says to her, I can't trust you. That doesn't mean to say you've done something wrong, but at the moment I can't trust you, therefore you can't be here, basically. It's that kind of thing. If you can't trust someone totally in that situation, you're not going to have them on board, basically.
They should have a department of mistrust that they can keep all these people in. I
It's a
trust
small
him.
holding cell. You trust him.
I trust the new guy because they're making him look so suspicious. He
fits into 24 because he's got those suspicious glances down to an absolute T.
Yeah, and he's only been there a few minutes.
I know.
And he's already worked on
sussed
them.
it. Well, we took a trip to LA ourselves, although not, of course, on Air Force One, unfortunately, and asked Dennis Haysbert what it's like to play at being president.
Do people find me presidential? I'd have to say, in a word, yes. I am actually asked at least once a day to run. So it has really affected people in a really, really positive way, and it's actually very flattering that people would ask me to run for the presidency. But I know I could handle it, but I don't think my family could.
Well, that's wonderful news, Mr. President. Congratulations on a truly remarkable achievement.
Thank you. When we finally decided that we were going to get on Air Force One, I was totally jazzed. I did think that we were going to be in the OC, for the whole season.
This is a good start, but I want to go over it again. In the meantime, Paul Davison, want him to get Air Force One ready as soon as possible.
I knew they had to get me out of there sooner or later. And when we, got on Air Force One, which was incredible, they have a mock-up of the entire plane, and it is just beautiful. And you really think that you're on a plane in flight. The most interesting thing about doing scenes with Penny is what she does before we shoot the scenes. Because generally I'm upset with her about something, so she'll inevitably always want to make me feel like she's my best friend before we start shooting, so I would take it lighter on her. And we happen to be really good friends. But I said, no, this is not going to work. Stop being friendly to me, because I'm still going to give it to you when they roll the camera.
What did he say?
Sit down.
Dave?
Sit down. Sherry Palmer's motives, hope they're out of love. But in my heart of hearts, I believe they're out of power.
If you resist in any way, I'll have no choice but to place you under arrest.
I think she's just real pissed that I divorced her, and she no longer has that power.
Well, later in the show, we'll be hearing from 24's director of photography, who'll tell us more about Air Force One mock-up. But Dennis also talked about Sherry Palmer. Now, the last time we saw her, he'd asked his security team to escort her to her car. If the president is on his way to LA, have we seen the last of that scheming ex-wife of his? Could that be it? Could that have been Sherry's last scene?
She turns up like a bad Penny, though, doesn't she? Well, her name is Penny, as he discussed there.
It is indeed.
What an ego on that guy.
He thinks he's the president.
Am I presidential? Yeah.
Yes, I am.
Yeah, it was really exciting. I got to go on Air Force One, and it was like a real plane and everything. It's like I'm
You've
the
got to
president.
convince it's method acting.
Mind you, I'd still vote for him.
I would as well.
No, but yeah, going back to the subject, Sherry, sorry. I wouldn't be at all surprised if she turns up again, because she's had a fairly anticlimactic kind of...
We would miss her very much. I'm going to go to the phone lines now. We've got Michael on the line. Michael, what's your theory about Sherry?
Hi. I think she's going to turn up in the OC again while President Palmer's out.
Do you think she would get in?
Yes, she's still got her access cards.
I wonder if she has, or if they were taken away from her when she left the building.
We didn't see them come off of her.
No. So what do you think she'll do when she gets into the OC?
She's probably going to cause some problems, then sort of try and escape, and then when Jack gets back, he'll be sent after her.
OK, all right. Thank you very much for your call. David, I'm going to ask you... My personal theory, which you're not going to like because it's a silly girly theory, is that the nuclear bomb's gone off, so everyone goes, oh, no, that's awful, I'm going to be with the one I love, she's going to remember she loves him, he's going to remember he loves her, and it's going to be a love thing.
It's a big test of President, though, isn't it?
What do you
Whether he
think?
allows his love to actually cloud his judgment so much that he allows somebody back on board he can't trust.
Not going to happen, is it?
Well, as you say, he's presidential material, isn't he? So.
What do you think about that theory about her still having her access cards? Would she be allowed to... They would
No, they'd take them off her straight away.
So you don't think she'll get... Do you think she'll come back into the series at all?
I think she will, because I think she'll say she hasn't had a big exit yet, and she's obviously a major character. And you can imagine her being in there as well and just muddying things again, because whenever she puts something in there, the president's got to think about it. We've all got to think about it, and all raises new issues of how it's going to progress, basically.
We've got to have more scenes with her and Lynn as well. They're so fantastic. I'm going to take some messages now. Gary in Peterborough says, now the bomb's gone off, Palmer will be under enormous pressure from the public. Will the people believe he did the right thing? How much will his decisions have affected his presidency? One more message here. Shane in Lincolnshire. Maybe Sherry's done a Mason and snuck into the luggage hold of Air Force One. I think, as David would say, the security might be a little bit tighter. Well, if Air Force One looked familiar, that's because you've probably seen the set before. We spoke to Rodney Charters, 24's director of photography, who told us more about filming those scenes.
The writers are very keen to keep the idea of the reality going, and we were lucky enough, of course, to get on Air Force One. We borrowed it from West Wing, and that was great because it's an existing multi-million-dollar set that was built for the Air Force One feature and is now available in Los Angeles. And it's totally convincing. When you walk on this giant jumbo jet, you can walk 100 feet down, 200 feet almost, and you're still inside this aircraft. Of course, we were